Welcome to season 2 of the Jeremy Mullins podcast, where we take a deep dive into different educational topics. I am Jeremy, I'm your host, and I'm here today with a special guest, Miss Sarah Jones. Welcome to Kentucky.
Thank you. It's good to be back home.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, Oklahoma to Kentucky. How long a drive?
It's 8.5 hours without kids or car, or not a car.
It stops.
Yeah.
Kids.
Yeah. Trevor makes things complicated. So he's 2. So now that he's a toddler, he doesn't want to sit as long. So we have to get out and walk around. So we're getting our walking in.
Yeah.
That's a plus.
Okay.
But
so 12 hours? 12-hour trip?
No, it ends up being about 9.5.
9.5. And then 2 hours on up to here. So we'll call it 12 hours.
Yeah, 12 hours works. 12.5.
Just to do a podcast.
Yeah, I came for you.
Right. I mean, that's what it's. I mean, we can put that on Instagram, social media.
Yes.
Truth, right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, truth. No, you guys got family here.
Yes.
Originally from here.
Originally from Owensboro, Kentucky.
Owensboro, Kentucky. Now in Oklahoma.
Yes.
Awesome. And we're in between.
Went to Texas A&M for school, so went to Texas for a while.
Okay.
And then up to Tulsa.
Okay.
Because that's a big oil and gas town.
Okay.
And I'm in oil and gas. And so job took me there, and now we're just northeast of Tulsa in Catoosa.
Awesome. So good little trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I always joke like I spent most of my life, or of course, all my growing up and most of my adult life in West Virginia, and then it's like you rip the Band-Aid off for one move, and then because it's a little easier, right? So then it was St. Louis for 5 years, and now we've been in Florida for 2, so it's always a journey.
Yes.
But hey, I want to tell your story. That's the intent and the goal of today's podcast is to tell your story and always. And I told her this off camera. I want you to be the storyteller, right? And I will chip in and talk about maybe some of the game plan or the X's and the O's, when it comes to dropping body fat and losing weight. Okay. And kind of give you guys, a little bit of a backdrop here. 60 some pounds down overall. Because I know we're at the point of the journey, and I love this point of the journey where it's cool. Don't get me wrong, it's cool to talk about X amount of weight lost, but everybody's journey, you get to the point where the scale isn't the number one goal anymore, and we're not looking at the weight on the scale, right? We're looking at these other factors, whether it be strength, whether it be endurance, whether it be how your clothes are fitting, that type of input versus output versus the scale.
Yeah, so 60 pounds overall, that was my lowest, and now I've gained about 7 pounds back.
Right,
but,
which is normal.
Yeah, but I mean, it's muscle. It's not fat, so my body fat percentage has improved.
Yeah, most people, and I guess would be your first little teaching point. Anytime someone's doing a fat loss challenge or weight wellness journey, I like to point at that way, because I got a lot of people, majority of people that I work with is in the First Form app, but in past, not everybody I worked with is in the app, right? And whether someone's doing an 8-week challenge or not, there's always a point that we're gonna get someone to like their lowest weight, and then once we get there, the individual is generally like, hey, I want to gain some muscle tissue. Right? Because, until you drop all the body fat, you don't realize maybe how much muscle you don't have, or an area of the body that maybe needs a little bit, muscle tissue, right? And for anyone out there, remember, if you're eating in a caloric deficit and then you start eating in a maintenance, you're always going to have a little bit of a water gain, right? And that's going to come inside the muscles as muscle glycogen or liver glycogen, so that's normal. And as Sarah's mentioned, not only does she have that, a couple pound gain, but also gaining muscle tissue, which is why the scale is now up, the 6 or 7 pounds. Okay. From a macro standpoint, right? So don't dive too much into it. Give us just an overview, right? Where you were at when we were up 60 pounds, like what was the thought process, and then kind of walk us through the last 18 months.
Yes.
18
Yes, months? It has been like 18 months now. It's been about 1.5 years. So we started out around, when I started in January of 2024, we started around 1,700 calories, I think, or 1,750 was kind of my input that we were trying to get.
And what was your weight at the time?
At that time, we were at 187.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and actually, it was funny because before I got in the app, I think I was even like 5 pounds heavier than that, like a week before, a week or two before. But because Christmas was right before that, And so the whole month of December, I had just all the sweets, right? So
Was it the Last Supper? Did you know you were starting
I
on
didn't
January
know.
1st?
No, I did not
Oh,
know.
okay. So it's just normal
No, this was just normal
habits
for
at
me.
that time.
I'd stopped breastfeeding in October.
Okay.
And so I was feeling pretty good like after I gave birth the following or the April prior. I was feeling pretty good because with breastfeeding you lose weight fast. And then what I didn't count on was when I stopped breastfeeding, it's just like this influx of weight just came on. You know, I didn't change any of my habits of how I was eating or anything else, and so my activity level didn't pick up, and so I just started putting on weight so fast at such a rapid rate, and that was really scary. And I had no energy. I felt terrible. On top of that, my toddler, or I guess he was still a baby at the time, was super heavy. I mean, he was weighing like 25 pounds at 9 months and required to be held and rocked for intervals of 45 minutes at a time. We laid him down, he would cry, we'd pick him up, we'd do it again. So from about 7 p.m. to about 11 p.m. at night, we were doing these 45-minute shifts of just curls, of 25-pound curls. That's what we were doing, is just bouncing. And it got to a point where I had to look at Randy and say, I can't like hold my child anymore. Like, you have to take him. My back hurts so bad. I can't even lay him down. I almost dropped him a couple times. So that was a wake up call to me. And so for his safety, I only held him when I was in a seated position because I had my lap to catch him if he fell. And that was really, I wouldn't say a humbling experience, but it was a wake up call for me. Okay. And so I decided, hey, I need to, if I'm going to take care of my child, I need to lift weights.
Your man child?
Yes, my man child. If I'm going to take care of him and be an adequate mother, because at that point I didn't feel like I was good enough or being a good mother. And so I needed to do something, make some kind of change. So at that last week in December, Randy and I had been talking about, hey, what are our options? Like, let's get in the gym. And then, out of the blue, he had seen somewhere about the First Form app, the 8-week challenge that they had. He has done a couple challenges before, but not with First Form. And I don't think he ever finished any. So when he came to me and he said, hey, First Form has this challenge. Will you do it with me? There's a partner challenge in it. At that point, I wasn't thinking about myself. It was I don't want to, but I'll do it for you.
To support you, yeah.
I'll do it to support you.
And I think you guys decided to walk down the wellness journey at a great time in your life, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, I think a lot of people mid-30s just had a kid. You're in that phase where like you're building your career, right? You're building your family. And those are higher key needs. Those are the things that we're focused on, right? And I've seen a lot of people have success inside of business or inside their career, but they let their wellness suffer. Or I've seen a lot of people who, they put too much time and effort in their wellness, and maybe some relationships suffer, or their career suffers, right? So that's the cool thing as I've watched you guys, because Randy's down still 100 some pounds, I think, from when he started. So try to get him on camera today. He's back around the corner here somewhere, but we're going to bring him on eventually.
He's a shy guy.
Yeah, we're going to bring him on eventually and do it as, because I've always loved when I have couples that go down the journey together, because I think it's so much, it makes it so much better. It makes it, life, to a degree easier, because it's hard to balance it, right? We just come off a weekend, Katie and I, where we did, a mountain bike race. This was one that we actually stayed together, and did it together, because normally, like, in these endurance sports, she goes on and then I'm following up the,
Oh, hey, that's Randy and me.
Yeah. So you understand that, right?
Yeah, he just we were running this morning and he just took off.
Yep.
And after we got back, and he told me he was going to run a 12-minute mile. Yeah. So he took off and I was like, clearly you do not know what a
12-minute mile is.
Yeah, okay, 8 minutes, just you go.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can let them run together, and then you and I will do the slow 12-minute mile.
When he got back, he said, were you mad? No, I was laughing at you.
Nope, because I ran my pace. It's all good. But I think that's so important, because it gives you, like you said, you're in it as a team, right? Mm-hmm. And the other thing is we see so many, couples out there and so many families, like, I don't want to say they give up, but it's just at that point of kids, gaining weight, that it just continues, right? And then unfortunately their 50s and 60s when they have that first medical episode, that is the wake up call, from that standpoint, right? So it's kind of neat to hear that, actually it was a strength thing that kind of motivated you, yes, him asking to do the challenge, but really like the strength issue was the first thing that the light bulb went off of, like, I've got to change.
And what's wild is I had some medical issues that should have been the light bulb moment, but it wasn't. And it was within the first month that I was working with you. I was changing the diet. I was tracking everything that I was eating within the app, and I was walking. Within the first month, there was not much resistance training, right, because all I was trying to do was, hey, let's get the diet under control. Let's hit those macros. Let's get the walking. If I can do that, then I can start adding the resistance training. And the only resistance training that I was doing for the first 8 weeks was I was doing a band program that was within the First Form app with resistance bands. And I would do it in the living room floor while Trevor was playing with his toys, watching Coco Melon. So imagine doing your strength training to Coco Melon songs. And that was my life for the first quarter.
But that's fine, right? I think so many people don't start their journey because they don't know what to do, or they think that they have to go to, these awesome gyms that are out there, right? And I'm not down on any of the gyms. We worked out a local one today. Shout out to Dale Beatty, who was also Team Alpha, who won a challenge back in the day, owns his own gym now, and we walked in there and got to see all the cool before and after photos on the wall, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, like, just get started, right? That is something that, if you're hearing this podcast for the very first time, you're going to start your wellness journey, just get started. It builds a baseline. Then we can work on that baseline. You can add stuff to it. Yes, should resistance training be in? 100% resistance training should be in. But resistance training can be bands, it could be body weight, it could be anything that you're doing resistance, right?
Yeah, and that was something from your education that I don't think I really understood, that it wasn't about what you think is resistance training.
Right.
It's like all of these things
yes.
count. And it's about the effort that you're putting in, and everyone's effort levels are different. So for me, just standing, holding my baby, and doing a curtsy squat in my living room, that was
enough stimulus in the beginning.
That was so intense and so challenging for me at the time, but it was so beneficial.
Well, and funny now, like fast forward, all three of us, have had injuries in the past year. We've all done PT. So our workout today was kind of cool because we did some movements, but we were kind of doing like these PT movements that we've learned, between, and then we finished it with 3 PT movements. And I'm like, I actually got a really good shoulder workout by doing a lot of I call it accessory work, and I know it's PT movements. But before I begin, I want to go back to, one thing that you mentioned. For the breastfeeding moms out there, you made a very good point. The weight was kind of coming off, and, you really wasn't necessarily, working out. You had some activity in there, but the weight was coming off. And then you stopped breastfeeding, and then you started gaining weight, right?
Yeah, at a faster rate than I'd ever experienced in my life.
Because we don't realize a lot of times, on the average person, you're looking at 500 calories a day, for breastfeeding. But that's average, right? Depends on how much milk that you're producing, how much is the baby feeding. There's a lot of factors that go into that. Mm-hmm. So you could have been 750 calories or more, right? There's also some positive hormone effects that come in with breastfeeding, right? Mm-hmm. So you kind of mentioned after that, like, you just didn't feel good. You felt sluggish after not breastfeeding, right? Mm-hmm. And all that goes hand in hand. So for her, that could have been up to, and this is just me estimating, 1,000 calorie swing between the body burning calories to produce the milk, right? From the standpoint of hormones being produced, feel good hormones, you feel good, you were probably moving more without noticing when you were breastfeeding, to going away, not producing the milk, so not burning the calories, to no hormones being produced where you feel good, and you probably didn't move as much.
No.
So it could have been 1,000 calorie day a swing from breastfeeding to not breastfeeding, which makes sense with how fast that you did gain the weight after that.
Well, that is crazy.
Right? And I think that's where a lot of times, and I get it, like, hey, it's a little easier now. Let's say I'll be 45 this week. So it's easier now as a 45-year-old coach who's been married for 10 plus years and 3 kids to have conversations with ladies about breastfeeding. Because, like, hey, we've been through it 3 times, right? This is, I've personally been through it. as having a wife that's breastfed, like I understand what's going on. I've worked with hundreds of clients that've done it. It's a little easier now than maybe 20 years ago.
Yeah, I bet.
But like those are things that we do take in consideration in the journey. So it's neat to see that. Okay. Now going back, so you're roughly, and don't shoot me for putting this in there, close to 200 pounds.
Yes, yeah. Actually, my highest was 211.
211,
Mm-hmm.
roughly December, January, and then you started the journey. We started you out around 1,800 calories.
Yep.
And, once again, guys, we do that, 10 to 12 calories per pound of body weight. So she was 200 pounds, but I was okay with her eating a little bit less because she wasn't active and she wasn't going to be doing a lot of physical activity to begin with, right? Mm-hmm. Under the circumstances. So what I did was just a little bit lower than the 10 to 12 calories per pound, knowing that she had 60, 70 pounds to lose, right? And that's okay. As long as hunger is good and energy is good and they're hitting their protein requirements, it's okay to be a little bit lower. Now, if she was, what's your current weight?
Oh, 133.
Okay. So 133 pounds now, right? So if you think about that, she's 133 pounds, 1,700 calories is above her resting metabolic rate. So even when she was 210 pounds, 1,700 calories was still above her resting metabolic rate because the extra 60 pounds of fat did not increase resting metabolic rate that much. And we took it slow. We built the snowball, right? We didn't have crazy results in January that I remember.
No, I think it was like 10 pounds, 12 pounds. Yeah.
So
and I didn't have any of the 8-week challenges. I didn't have crazy results. But I also didn't let up between the challenges. Yeah. So I kept it going. After every 8-week challenge, I think I took a day where whatever I'd been craving, that entire 8-week challenge that I didn't have, I had the day after the challenge ended. So whether it was a piece of cake or whatever, I had it that day. I didn't go crazy that day because then I would have just felt sick and felt awful. I mean, there was a couple times I had a couple meals that maybe pizza or something, and I felt so bad after I had that because I hadn't had it in so long that I was I've almost sworn off pizza at this point, which is sad, but I guess it's great. But I'd take one day and then I'd get right back on it. And I would keep it going, and it was less of a, hey, 8-week, and I was just like pushing during that whole time, just being consistent and continuing because I saw that snowball. And we started, you had said that, once you build that snowball, you get to like lose where you're averaging 2 or 3 pounds a week. Yep. And I got that, and I could see it in the app. Which
is crazy too, like, because if you think about losing 2 pounds a week, you were in a big calorie deficit, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a couple questions I want to ask, and you kind of remember back to it. Because when I first asked you to increase protein, right, inside the diet, like what was some of your thought processes from that? Because all the listeners know, unless someone's a brand new listener, understand that like I am a advocate of, and I hate to use the term higher because I think it is optimal protein, right? Mm-hmm. But to what the average American thinks, higher protein, right? We like to start at 1 gram of protein per target body weight and then work that up. And then, all transparency, to let you guys know where we're going with it, we eventually worked her up to 200 grams of protein.
240.
240. Okay, so we went over 200 in the final push, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and you went back to 200.
I'm still at 220.
Okay. And that's another thing going into teaching. I like to increase protein higher than the 1 gram per target body weight when we're pushing fat loss, right? So at the end of her kind of, getting her as lean as much as possible, where we're seeing abs, and I forgot to mention this, she was the year-long winner for the Supplement Superstore's transformation.
Operation Transformation.
Thank you. Which is a lot of times we don't talk about because I'm not an S2 employee, but S2 is a sister company of First Form. It is the local supplement stores that are mainly in the Midwest, in Missouri, and in Kansas City, and now in Oklahoma.
Yes.
Okay, got it right. So that was cool to see, like, because we were going for a lifestyle win, and then all of a sudden this popped up, and we were like, okay.
Wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, like, so we were like, well, didn't know we were in that competition, but yes.
Yeah, I didn't tell anybody.
That's okay.
I didn't tell you. I didn't tell the guys at Supplement Superstore, so they had no idea. They said they got a call from HQ, and we're like, hey, like, was she in the store a lot? Like, we haven't heard about her.
Yeah.
And so It was like a surprise to everybody. Yeah, but we'd gotten a new location, like supplement superstore in Owasso, and so Randy and I were so excited. We were just doing our normal errands and went by and saw it. We were like, we've got to go in.
Yeah, and you guys were purchasing your product there versus online, which is awesome.
So we went in there and the guys were great. And so I started getting my body scans as a way to check in with you and send you my results. And I did that about every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And you had already talked about, I listened to the podcast where you talked about body scans and different avenues of kind of getting that information. And you were all about the trend. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to have to go enough to get a trend.
Yes.
That way I'm not relying on one result and I'm not emotionally attached to one result. You go in and you get a bad scan and then it like wrecks your week.
And those InBodies are awesome.
Yeah.
But then unfortunately people do that. So the InBody, guys, is the InBody is it's the name of the scale. It's bioimpedance would be the type it is. Mm-hmm. Gives great readings. Gives pretty consistent readings. Like the standard deviation is not that bad on it. But so many things can affect it, right? So if you went in, worked out, and drank some water versus the other one you went in, fasted, and first thing in the morning, it would throw the numbers off. And what happens is a lot of people go in, they'll be like, I gained 3 pounds of muscle in a week. And I'm like,
did you?
Yeah, I wish we could do that.
No, I want to tell you I got my best results if I drank a bottle of water right before I went in. And you wouldn't have thought that because when I started, I didn't think that. I was thinking, the bottle of water, that would add the weight, and I want my weight to be lower. But if you're looking at your muscle, your muscle mass, those muscles would absorb the water.
Absorb water because it's hydration.
Yes, and that's exactly what they told me in store because I was a little disappointed with my reading, and they were like, well, look at this number here, like you're dehydrated. Your water number is less than it was before, and so I started drinking a bottle of water on the way before I went in every time.
Just be consistent, yes.
Yes, and I realized that my skeletal muscle mass number was higher if I did that. But it's if you're consistent with these things, kind of like how I've been consistent just throughout the whole program, tracking food, supplements. I've noticed all of these little things about myself that I know how my body responds to an increase of protein or a decrease of protein or different supplements, how it impacts me.
And I think even you messaged, pretty sure you messaged after Memorial Day, you either didn't track or you guys had some stuff on Memorial Day and the scale was up. And I love that. Like, I love that people can like separate that and be like, hey, it was Memorial Day weekend, and this is not what she did. It's just an example. I had a few drinks and, ate a little bit more carbs than what I used to have. Skull was up 3 pounds, no big deal. I'm going to do a weight later in the week. Like, I love when someone says something like that. Because now I know they understand that is not a fat gain. That is just some water gain from what's going on, and it's going to return to normal. Okay?
Yeah. I've even, recognized that. So I had, my thing is sugar. So, and sugar I've found.
What's your favorite sugar?
It's currently been cake, but it historically has been cookies.
Okay.
And part of my huge weight gain, I'm going to attribute to cookies and cookie dough, chocolate chip, homemade. Dough. Oh, yeah. I was making it twice a week for half a recipe because I thought that was a good move, not a whole one. So I was being okay. That was a
But you just spoon it?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Who cares about those raw eggs?
No. When's the last time someone got sick off raw eggs and cookie dough? Come on.
Oh, no.
I mean, it's so good now. Like, you find it in the, I've seen it in, gas stations, the edible cookie dough, right?
Yeah.
I guess they don't use eggs.
Yeah.
But
Right. So that's, get off that.
Yeah, no, get off the sugar. Going back to, because, here I asked her how she felt with increasing protein, and she was proud to say she consumes 240 grams a day and decided to stay at 220. So back to that. I like to increase higher protein, especially when we're in a calorie deficit pushing fat loss. Why? I think it works just as good as some of the GLP-1 meds at decreasing hunger. Mm-hmm. If you eat enough protein, you're going to stimulate hunger, decreasing hormones in the body, and you're not hungry. That's one thing.
Yeah, and I've noticed that huge. Yep. And that's why I haven't decreased my protein. Is because if I'm hungry, I'm going to go for carbs. And I'm going to want sugars. And as long as my protein has been high, I haven't craved sugar.
I love to see it high, right? Mm-hmm. The only people that and I get it, I teach my college kids, when I'm teaching them, hey, you'll read that protein's not good for athletes in the sense because it does decrease hunger so much they might not eat enough carbs and fats to be able to play their sport, right? Totally, I get that. Yes, that's part of it because it works so good at decreasing hunger. Okay. Second part of it is it maintains muscle tissue, right? So when you're in a calorie deficit, like I've seen people increase muscle tissue in a caloric deficit because we got the protein, A is high, but we're also doing the resistance training. So it is possible to even gain some muscle tissue, but the biggest thing I want to do is maintain the muscle tissue when we're working down. So those are the two big 1-2 whammies that comes to protein. And then the third one is the increase in calories. Okay, so 135-pound athlete, right? Or 135-pound client. I athletes, we're all athletes to a certain degree, right? Our sports are just different. Some of us are slower, right? So she eats 100, and we'll just say 140, keep our math easy. So 140 grams would be enough protein for her as far as to maintain muscle tissue and everything in maintenance. But she was eating 240. So it's an extra 100 grams of protein. Protein has a 30% thermic effect, meaning that every 100 calories you eat, you're going to burn an extra 30 calories. So an extra 100 grams of protein is 400 calories. That's extra 120 calories a day
that I get to eat.
That you get to eat. Or that in her pushing the fat loss phase was another 120 calories that she was in a deficit. Now it's 100 extra 20 calories she gets to eat a day because that protein is burning those calories. So those are the big reasons why I like to run that high protein. And then what I do is I ask the client, I ask a question like, hey, how do you feel on that much protein? And you're like, going back to it, like, hey, Jeremy, 240 was just a touch too high, but I really liked it around 200, 220. Perfect, stay there.
240, I was a little full, and I think that I remember at 240 we were really going to get my leanest.
Yes.
And so it was hard to get that number. I was full all the time, which was great to a point, but I also felt really weak in the gym.
Yes.
And that trying to fuel around the workouts, that was really difficult because I had all this protein all the time, right? Not just around the workouts, but to get it in, it was just I was consuming a lot.
And I work with all clients on that. I will ask them how they feel, and then we'll go back to it. She could have selected anywhere between 140 and 240 on protein, and I would be comfortable with it because that amount would be perfect for maintenance. Okay. The other cool thing was our calories increased throughout because of the protein, right? So we started at 1,700, but I want to say like midway in the spring, especially at the end, it was more up 1,900, 2,000 because of protein.
Hungry.
Yeah, the protein was higher, right?
And you didn't change. You hardly ever changed my carbs and my fats from where they were, and except at the very end. I think we increased some carbs and we pulled some fats down for my final cut. But other than that, we just raised protein and my calories went up, and so I was eating more, so I had more energy to be more active, and so I was honestly like feeling great. And then every time I said I was hungry, you let me have more food.
More protein?
I think that people, because I was losing weight so much, they thought that I was starving myself. And especially when I got really thin, like down at my leanest, people were like, are you okay? You're getting too thin. I'm
eating 2,000 calories a day.
I was eating like 2,500 calories at one point. And I'm like, guys, I'm eating. Do you need to see my plates of food? Like, I'm eating well. And still, like, now I'm like, I'm eating all the time. This is not like, it was such a swap because I grew up thinking to lose weight, you had to not eat.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even early, I think of my dietetics, nutrition career, like the term diet was restriction, right? You thought about like low calorie diet. You had to be on low calories. And even now, like, especially my females, I would say 90% of my females, if they're tracking or have been tracking before, we're increasing calories in their diet because I'm increasing protein, right? They're coming in, they've been on a 1,200 calorie diet, 1,300 calorie diet, and we're starting 1,700, 1,800, 1,900 because of the extra protein, they're losing weight, right? Now, once again, I say that 90% because there might be 10% that has never tracked before, and they were just overeating calories not knowing it, right? Which is very common for all of us to do when we don't track, right? But yeah, like I just think that too many people undereat, starve themselves to get results, right? Or overtrain, right? And I'm okay, and maybe we'll touch on this a little bit where you push the envelope exercise wise. I think there's periods of time where you do need to push the envelope and do more exercise than you're normally going to do day to day to get results. But it shouldn't be so much that when you're done, that pendulum swings completely to the other side. Mm-hmm. Okay. So was there a period of time where you were doing like, man, like I can't keep this up for a very long time, or where was that tipping point, I guess, for you?
Yeah, this February and March.
Okay.
And then I finally, because we were pushing to the end of a challenge again, and I started getting crazy headaches when I was lifting because I was trying to not push endurance so much, but I was trying to push strength. Okay. And like really push like, how much muscle can I put on in a short period of time? So I was really trying to increase my weight that I was lifting. So I was training a lot and really working on my pull-ups. I was really proud of my pull-ups, and then inclined movements would set me off. And apparently I had just some overworked muscles in my shoulder that I didn't ever take care of, didn't stretch or massage or any kind of recovery therapy. And I didn't know I had all this tightness here, and then I'm a naturally stressed out person.
That's where you hold it.
And I hold the tension, and I've been, educated and told all this after the fact when we're trying to go through and work out the source of these headaches. But yeah, it was because I was overtraining and I was pushing a little bit too hard. And even before I had the headaches, I knew, I was like, this isn't something that I can keep up. And so since then I've pulled back to about like 3 to 4 times lifting, but it was definitely 6 times a week I was lifting.
You made a very good point there too. Like I always say this, like there's no such thing as overtraining. And what I mean by that is the body will adapt, right? Mm-hmm. But it's the under recovery aspect that most of us deal with, right? Especially if we're not true professional athletes, right? Because you got jobs, you got kids, you got travel, whatever it is, like that goes into play. Like the exercise to a degree, once you get into your journey and you're working out and working out becomes fun and you set your goals, that's almost the easy part.
Yeah.
Right? It's balancing all the other stuff. And I can say this, like I'm going through the same thing with driving a lot where it's been like you basically told like, hey, you need to work on your mobility and your stretching, or you can continue to have these small little injuries. It's like, okay.
Yeah, I felt like it was one thing after another. And this is where I'm speaking to everybody here who has gone on a health journey or tried to get fit. It's every time I had tried to do it before, and this is non-nutrition, okay? So that's its own ball game of problems that you run into when you're trying to change your nutrition and stay on track. But as far as exercising, anytime I would start trying to run, I would get shin splints or something else. Anytime I tried to lift, there would be something that hurt or I pulled something. So anytime where there was, headaches, usually the first time I would go and I tried to do something, it was like my body stopped me and told me no. I have a hip problem that was made worse by having a child, and now I have this hip mobility issue.
Was that on the one side from holding, you think?
No, I had it prior to, and I think it was maybe from an old dance injury that made it worse. And then they said that, your hips get messed up when you give birth. And so that makes things tighter and worse that you got to work on. But
because a lot of ladies get that like mobility issue because they carry their child on one hip for so long and they don't switch sides. They just walk that.
It's all the things, and all those things had always stopped me in the past, and I would quit. Very first time something happened, I was like, okay, my body's not built for this. I'm not an athlete. I can't. I can't. And so this time when we got started in the challenge, my hip was the issue. I could hardly walk over like 10 minutes at a time because of like nerve pain in my leg. And so I decided I'm going to have to go out and do research. Like, we're going to have to solve this problem. I'm going to work through it. This is the one time I'm not going to quit. So I went out, found, a solution to like help open my hip, we were talking about the ball that you lay on. Like, that's one of I have to lay on my ball all the time.
I pull out my PT ball to do my stretches, and she's like, I know what that is.
I did those this morning. Perks of getting older. But yeah, it's those things that this time it was a mind shift switch that I said, like, we've got to work through it, and like we can't stop at the first side of pain.
I posted this and I'll read it because I think this is, something that I think is important, like what you just said, right? And this is on one of our guys, had a really good change. I mean, he's definitely single digit body fat, lost quite a bit. But, I put on here is like, we're all going to have obstacles in life. You can attack those obstacles or you can use them as excuses. And previous times in the past, like, you let that be a excuse.
Oh, yeah. And
versus this past time, it was like, okay, this is just an obstacle, which we all are going to have, right? We're going to have some next week. We're going to have some 2 months from now. Like, we're going to continue to have obstacles. Yeah. It's our choice whether we're going to look at this as an obstacle that we can overcome or we're going to use it as an excuse.
Mm-hmm. And I've noticed in this journey, there's always an obstacle. There's no amount of time that you don't have something that's a challenge. It's either something, and it might be multiple things. It's either something that is trying to pull you off diet, or, your elbow's hurting, your shoulder's hurting. Now it's your knee. There's always something.
There's always something. And the difference is, like, for example, I went through a phase, and I guess it was like the team, was struggling with weekends, right? Like, I get really frustrated. It's like, for some reason, sometimes, like, it all happens as, like, everybody has the same issue, right? And I remember just being like, hey, guys, like, if it's the same obstacle that keeps coming up, then that's a choice.
For real.
Right? Like, if you continue to mess up the same obstacle that comes up and up and up and up, right? And it's coming, right? It's just like, hey, like, Christmas is this time every year. So if you get frustrated because you're having to put, I'm just going to throw a number out there, $1,000 on your credit card to buy Christmas presents, why don't we just save $100 a month leading up to Christmas, and then boom, you got your $1,000 to spend on Christmas. It's coming, right? So, like, if an obstacle is coming, that is a choice. Yes.
Yeah. Like traveling for work. I travel for work. The first time I traveled, it was really hard. I took a lot of information that I learned based on your education, and the team gave so much feedback.
Because everybody's travel's different.
Yes, but everybody had such great ideas of how do you conquer traveling for work. How do you get it all done? How do you meet your goals? What if you're out in the middle of nowhere like me, when you travel to somewhere that doesn't have options?
Yep.
And how do you prep for that? And the first time was really rough. I learned some things. I tried some things, and now I've done it a couple of times since then, and I've used that as an opportunity to learn and get better every single time I go out to the field.
Yep.
I know now what works, what doesn't.
I mean,
we've got pretty good. Hitting my goals.
Every time I come here, I do, so in the morning, I'll go and get 2 breakfast burritos, and I ask for light potatoes, extra egg. I'll eat half of the burrito and drink a protein shake. And then I'll do the same thing for lunch. So for $8 a meal, I've got my breakfast and I've got my lunch and lands my macros. So every time I come and I'm on military orders for more than just a weekend, or even a weekend, I'll do it sometimes. That is kind of my go-to because I know it works, right? So that's the thing, is like, it's an obstacle to travel and eat good, but you can figure it out. But if you just choose, like, all right, well, Jeremy, you got to travel drill every single month, you're just going to eat bad that weekend.
Yeah.
That's a choice.
How bad do you want it?
Exactly. Like, you got, so once again, it's obstacles or it's excuses. The choice is up to you. Okay. Now, speaking of choices, or what is a couple things that you felt like you have gained in this journey that you really didn't go into thinking about? Like, it could be anything, like better mother, better spouse, better worker. Like, what are 2 areas or things that have improved that you didn't even think about improving when you first started?
So, first off, Randy and I's marriage has improved a whole lot, and I didn't expect that to happen. I honestly thought before this, like, hey, our marriage is really strong, it can't get any better. And boy, was I super surprised, because we started walking every day together, and all of a sudden we had an hour of conversation that we didn't have before. So it was no longer the surface level, hey, how was your day? How are you doing? And all you got was the immediate, if he's had a bad day or has talked all day, he doesn't want to talk to me, so I got a snappy response. It was now we were getting into deeper, and I heard about his bad day and what was bothering him and how we could help each other out. He heard about mine, and we were able to actually talk about, like, big life decisions and moves and things that we would have ever, and dreams, like things that we didn't talk about anymore. We hadn't talked about level of things since we dated, right? Because we just sat in front of the TV and watched Netflix and had our shows.
I was going to say, like, even, I call it the roommate phase, right? And what I mean by that is, like, you know, life is busy. And then when you have a small child, life is busier, right? So it's either laundry, cleaning the house, getting ready for school, you know, getting ready for work, going to work, changing diapers, or in your guys' cases, the 45-minute shift of holding, was it 45 minutes? You know, like, and I saw that the other day on someone on social media, and it was called the roommate phase. And it's like, hey, you're going to go through this. And that's a very good point, because if you're walking together, it's an automatic time. You can talk about plans. You can talk about the day. You can talk about all this other stuff, right? Because you're out there for 45 minutes to an hour.
And you're doing something hard together. You're encouraging each other.
Yeah.
You feel better after you do it. So you have these like positive endorphins. So all of a sudden, instead of maybe taking out some negative energy that you got during the day, and now you're like not really taking it out on each other, but it's there. No. And now it's like this. There's this positive environment that's starting to grow. And we didn't always want to go out and walk. And I've told you about this. Like, we couldn't just walk out our door and push a stroller on our road because we were on a gravel road. And so we had to make the conscious choice to load up a stroller, go to the park, and walk and try to get it done before Trevor's bedtime every day. But that was a conscious choice that we're going to do this. And then we saw such growth in our marriage in a very short time that it was just, that was enough right there to keep going.
And what's awesome about that is, like, it was good to start with. Like, I've had couples, you know, we talk about, like, things are so much better because we fought over this in the beginning, we fought over that, because one person maybe was into fitness, the other person wasn't into fitness. So when they both started, yes, that fixed it. But, like, this is one of the very few times I can even remember someone saying, like, things were good, but now they're better. Yeah. That's awesome. What's another one?
Another one would definitely be work. I feel like work efficiency. I mean, I want to point out, like, I feel like a better mother now, because I can lift and I can do and I can get on the floor, but I feel like that's too easy, right? I feel like I'm a better employee for work, and I'm more efficient at what I do, and I can go in and they recognize that I can now execute with like a faster speed, and it's great. The company I work for, they see that and honor it, but they don't ask me to do more, which is fantastic, because I feel like that I've been at places in the past where maybe if I did something really well or executed quickly, then you get a negative effect, because then they pour more on you. Yeah. No. But here it's just like, we really see that, like, you're doing great, which is fantastic. But through this journey, I felt more focused, less brain fog. I can take a task and execute it better and faster, more efficiently. And I'm just better with my time. Well, and because you have to be almost.
That's what I was saying.
To be able to track.
I think it's two things. It's personally, right, when you're eating good and training, you know, the mindset is there, right? Like, mentally, you know, you're on point. But I also think that, like, a lot of that translates over when we start building habits and being efficient in, okay, you know, if I can create something as a habit, I don't have to think about it. And we do the same thing with work, right? So, you know, it's like, for me, for getting up, like, one of the first things I usually do in the morning is get in and just check a few messages in the app. Just kind of assess, where am I at? How many messages do I have, right? And, you know, I think it's just to develop these habits that you use to have success within your wellness journey, and those translate well over to real life. Mm-hmm. So, transition a little bit. So, talked about a couple things that got better that weren't expecting it. Where are we going now? Let's take a pause. Over the left-hand shoulder is a present you bought me, which is awesome. So I had to put it in here. A little Blanton's bourbon to drink on. May take it with me this weekend to Summer Smash.
I needed to make sure that you knew that I didn't forget about you.
Yeah.
That we had a win.
That is tradition. Yes, I can pull it out there. Tradition of Team Alpha is if they win a challenge, they just have to buy me a bottle of bourbon. Like, that's it. That's all I ask. A bottle.
This is the first time I've seen Jeremy since the win.
That's the only problem, right? Because, you know, yes. Because with the S2, that's the only negative was they don't fly you out to first form,
Uh-huh.
for that challenge. And normally when they fly winners out to first form, I fly out too, and get it. So, but it all worked out. But where are we going from here? Like what are the plans? I know we were doing our walk earlier, and you're kind of like, I just haven't decided physically, like an event to do. But just where do you want to go in general with your wellness? Like, what are some things that you're looking forward to doing? Are there some events that you got on the board? I'd say vision board, but like the board that you want to, hey, I want to do this, whatever it is. And what do you want? What are the goals?
I would really like to run a half marathon. Say I did it. So I went into this year thinking, okay, I want to run a 10K because that in my mind was like a massive challenge. Yep. Well, we were in Vegas for one of Randy's business trips, and we went out to conquer my first quarter challenge, or not challenge, but my first quarter goal of hitting a 4 mile uninterrupted or non-walking mile goal. And we started running that, and I did 4 miles, hit runner's high, which I'd never experienced a runner's high like that
all those
before.
Endorphins.
Oh my gosh, all my pain went away. I didn't feel a thing. I was like, okay, we'll keep going. And we had all these distractions of Vegas, and so we took it mile by mile. We got
Was it down the strip?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And when we got to mile 5, I was like, wait, we're only 1 mile away from a 10K? Holy cow. Like, yeah, I just pushed the button. I was just off. And so that was exciting to finish that and know I could do it. Since then, running's been a lot harder. I don't know why. Maybe I need to go back to Vegas and like run again.
Pete, they do have. I ran. Oh gosh, I don't know what it's called. I didn't sign up for it. My buddy signed up for it, but I went out with him last minute, so I didn't have a race bib. So I waited at like 500 feet into the race and just jumped in with him, and then like pinned his race, like part of his race bib on me, and we ran the Vegas Marathon together. And then I still, like, when we finished, I got they gave you the thing, yes, a medal and everything. It's so hopefully no one associated with the.
That's hilarious.
Yep. So that was the one marathon that I don't even know what the term would be called.
You're like an unofficial marathoner.
Yes, but after finishing, it was like I'm taking the hardware. Like,
well, yeah,
I ran 26 miles, not the 26.2 because I was, I waited. I jumped in late. But I remember taking it. I had no, like, I was like, you know what? No, it's okay.
That's hilarious. That sounds like my last race. Almost like, apparently, according to Randy, I turned around before the turnaround. Yeah. I was like right there at it, but there was people in the way at the drink table, and I didn't see the cone, and there was signs that said turn around, and so I did. And apparently, I just missed a few steps.
I mean, turn around, okay? I turned around.
Yeah, he was waiting for me and being sweet to like tell me bye and good luck because he was running a 10K and I just did a 5K. Oh well, but
4.9. All right, so half marathon.
Okay. He's gonna try to run a marathon in November, and so. After I ran that 10K, I was like, okay, I'll run a half marathon in November. But now running's been so hard for me since then. I don't know why. But now I'm scared that I can't do it. And so my head's like I'm playing a mental game of, oh, can I really do it? And so I think I'll end up doing it. And Monte's got me into running a mile a day right now. And I told you that I started it to gain some leg strength and to gain confidence.
You ran a 8:55. Was that this morning or yesterday?
Yesterday.
Okay, I saw that.
And I felt awful because I just felt so stiff and I'm so sore. So I feel like if I actually took some rest days and then tried to run it when I felt better, I think I could really get it well under 9. But I'm 10 days in and I'm seeing some like already like good improvements, which is what I had seen from him and saw from a couple Team Alpha members that they were getting some really great results. So
running, I think it is definitely an efficiency thing. Now, don't get me wrong. There's some people out there that can just run, right? Gotcha. For me, like if you looked at my VO2, we looked at my heart rate and everything right now, like I'm in good cardiovascular shape. Mm-hmm. But I struggled in my last PT on the run. Like struggled. I set a new heart rate max. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Training Peaks told me, hey, you set a new, whatever heart rate max today. So I'm like, yeah, because I was working really hard.
Yeah.
But because I didn't run that much in the past quarter, I got back into lifting after the surgery and just been having fun lifting and gaining strength back and biking a lot. But the biking didn't translate over. So I think there is something, like you said, if you want to go and do some running events, definitely look at doing running 3 or 4 days a week to make it a little bit easier on yourself.
Yeah. So I'm probably gonna run like a mile a day for a little bit. I'm definitely probably not gonna make a goal of like 100 days or anything crazy, but
Right.
just enough to like get some confidence
Yep.
to where I'll pull the trigger and decide, hey, am I gonna run a 10K? Am I gonna
Yep.
run a half marathon in November? Go ahead and book that, and then I'll start on a formal running plan and probably just do the running plan within the app.
I think that's a smart thing. Is like, hey, mile a day until you commit to a race, and then just commit to your training program.
Yeah, because it's helping me. Like, I'm not even thinking about it. I'm just like going out and hitting the door and running a mile, and that's where I want to be with a 5K. Is where I can just like go out and I don't have to think about it, and I can just run 3 miles. And yeah, it might be hard one day, harder than the other.
The others, yeah.
But I don't feel like I have to like really psych myself up for it.
Do it. Okay.
So that's where I'd like to be. And then as far as lifting goes, I mentioned I've pulled back to lifting about 3 or 4 times a week. But I have some strength goals too. So I want to get back into the pull-ups. I know we were working on trying the kipping pull-ups, seeing if that would help a little bit. I've tried like working on some like kind of jumping pull-ups, that kind of thing, doing things a little bit different than just strict pull-ups.
And strength just takes a little bit longer,
Yes.
right? Like that's the thing. Like and I'm not saying that cardiovascular is easier, but like if you do a cardiovascular training modality 6 to 8 weeks, you gain pretty significant during that time. But you can lift for 6 to 8 weeks, and yes, you'll get stronger. But like it's
so slow.
Yeah, you're not going to be nowhere near like where you would be 2 or 3 years down the road. So that's where I think people want, when you're just looking at strength goals, definitely slow play those, right, and work on just getting a little bit slower over time,
Yeah, I think that's one thing I'm learning now is what's a realistic goal. Like my Murph goal was way off. Like I thought just because of how I did the Manion.
Yeah.
I hope I said that right. Hero workout, and I did that in like 47 minutes. So I thought, man, that's not that much different than the Murph. I can do the Murph quicker.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
Yeah. Different movements.
Somebody should have stopped me when I said I could do the Murph in 45 minutes, like on my first time doing the Murph.
Because there was less push-ups, and it was sit-ups and squats. Yeah. And in females, generally, air squats is not a big deal. It's a nerd thing. Your sit-ups are strong. Push-ups not as strong in the general female. So females, like you got strong push-ups out there. I'm saying general.
And I did, when I did the Manion, I did assisted push-ups. So I was on my knees. When I did the Murph, I was not.
So it makes a big difference.
I did a couple reps that I was on my knees, but other than that, like I went full out. I wasn't vested, so I was like, but I'm gonna try my hardest, and I'm gonna do.
Yeah, and that's
real push-ups. So it took some more time. So
I always tell people, suffer.
I've got some better goals.
Yeah, suffer with intent. That's the ultimate goal of that workout, in my opinion. Suffer with intent of what it is and what it means, and then work on getting a little bit better each year. Like that's the goal. It's. I've done it invest straight through. I've done it partition. This year we did half, and it hurt just as much. Katie and I split it. And the intensity was so much higher because I would run 400 meters, she would run 400 meters. I would run 400 meters, she would run 400. So there's our mile. And then we did she did 5-5-15 because I'm stronger in push-ups. And then I did 5-15-15. And then we just went back and forth until we got all the reps in. And then we did the final run. I did mine invest, she did uninvested. And we did that because we had a bike ride that we wanted to do. And I tell you what, the bike ride was hard. After doing half of a Murph.
I bet it was.
I mean, I was still shaking. Like I took a post-workout stack. I took some applesauce right before that, but I was still, when I got on the bike, like I was still like shaking, from it. So, last question. If there was someone that was on the fence of like starting their journey, right? So, hopefully someone shares this with, hey, a female that is a few months post, don't say post baby, but post breastfeeding, right?
Mm-hmm.
So baby's getting toddler age, kind of in that same boat that you were in. What conversation would you have them? What would be the elevator spill to them to start their journey?
I think that the hardest thing for a new mother when starting the fitness journey and health journey and changing your diet, that everything that comes with it is, I don't have the time, I don't have the energy, I don't know what I'm doing. And so those three things are enough to, one of those three things is enough to knock someone off the fence. But what I've found is you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to know it all. I knew nothing about tracking food and macros prior to going in. I've never been considered an athlete. I've never been one to be in the gym or be really comfortable with myself or lifting. And all you have to do is get started and get moving. Like being a part of the First Form community and having access to all your education gave me all the tools that I needed to be successful. You don't have to hit the door, like full speed running. It's those building habits one at a time, and that's what I like to tell people is build one at a time. I started with nutrition, so I like to tell people start there first because that's where I saw the biggest difference the fastest. First, within like 2 to 3 weeks, my migraines that I've suffered with for 10 years went away completely because I eliminated a lot of processed foods and sugar. Cookies. Okay, cookies cause migraines. Now we know. And so there was that. My indigestion that was so bad went away.
Cookies.
And pregnancy.
That's true. Yeah,
it's real.
Yeah, those hormones.
Real.
Yeah.
Well,
and if it was during pregnancy, how the baby's sitting can affect it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I had it from the cookies after. I kept it going.
Once baby was gone, yeah, might as well. Okay.
Let's still blame it on the baby.
Yeah, exactly.
So that went away. So these things, like you change your diet, like significant things happen super fast. So that's what I want to advise first. Is start with the diet. Once you can conquer that, and we always say hit your protein. Don't worry about the fats and the carbohydrates. Like right off, hit your protein, hit your calories. The rest is going to work itself out. So once you hit those, then you can start refining other things. And then once you have that, add another element in. Make sure, hey, I think you started me at 30 minutes of walking.
Yep.
Because it was just like, it was too much to commit to an hour of my time to walk a day. So you said, let's see how 30 minutes goes. If you can nail 30 minutes of walking a day, then let's talk about bumping it up. And so you let me go at my own pace, and I loved that because it didn't push me so hard that I wanted to quit. And so it was those baby steps, and the same thing on protein. If I hit my protein for several weeks in a row, then you'd take me up 20 grams and say, hey, let's see if we can do it at this level.
And you're 100% correct. Like, if we get the diet with a little bit of movement, we can see great results. Mm-hmm. And listen, I love the CrossFit, the Orange Theory, the F45, High Rocks. Like, I love all this high intensity stuff that's getting a lot of social media attention right now. But like, you don't have to have that to start producing results. Does it help? 100%. But like, it's not where I would start someone at. Like, going back to what you were saying earlier in the episode, like, it could cause some injury. If you start out of the gate, too hot.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, and just start with what you can do. You're making small changes that are going to last a lifetime. It's not a quick thing. It's a journey. It's going to take a long time to get there, and you have to have patience. But just make that like one small thing, like get that 1% better every day, and make those small decisions that add up to be these like huge things. And now I can look back and say, man, I did that, and look what I'm doing now. And if you talk to me, I was talking to my family this weekend, and they were talking about me running, and they said, you hate running, like you've always taught you hate it, like, but you're doing it, and like we cannot believe you're doing it. And I'm like, do you know who I am? I don't know who I am. Like, looking back, I'm just, like, I'm looking at myself now, and I'm associating myself with an athlete, and that's never
been the case. Yeah.
And so now I'm like doing things that I never even thought that I was capable of. So it's the amount of confidence and things that come with the journey is just, it's crazy. It's very rewarding. something I just want to continue.
Yes, and for those maybe not people starting their journey, maybe it's been on your journey. A key takeaway there is she has selected now this identity, right? In the sense that like her identity is just, and I love the broad term athlete, because now you'll do different stuff. Not once did she say she was a runner. I like that, right? That's the same as me. I will run, but I don't think my identity will ever be
a runner.
A runner. And we were having this conversation when we were walking earlier. I was telling them, hey, I'm working on, myself, changing my identity from more a power-based athlete, which I've always been, right? It's just easier for me. Like I've put a lot of effort into both endurance and power, but like power comes a little easier. But I really want to do some endurance stuff, so I've got to like flip that switch and really have that focus of I'm an endurance athlete, right? And give up a little bit of that ego that comes along with the power, okay? So love those takeaways. I'm excited to see, what you do, where you go. And for the listeners, we're going to put her Instagram in the show notes. You guys go over there, especially if you're a female, right? Because I get it. Joking earlier, 45-year-old male here, got it. I post things, on social media. Like, go watch some of her journey. I think, especially for maybe those new moms out there, it'll give you some inspiration. It'll give you some ideas. And I know you're a great person. If they message you, you would answer whatever they needed.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And help them out. So
yes, I'm here to answer any questions. If you want to know how to work out with your baby or toddler, I've done quite a bit of that in the floor or in my garage. So
those things that you might think is, can you do that or is abnormal? Nope. Probably done them.
Probably so. Yes.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for driving 12 hours just to be here.
Yeah, and 12 back.
And 12 back.
24 hours for you, Jeremy.
Just to do a podcast. We appreciate you. And then we will actually see you in a couple of days at Summer Smash. So listeners, hey, appreciate all you guys listening to the show. We started the year out really, I wanted to do a show a day. It's just very difficult to get that done. Understanding that this is not my full-time job of doing the podcast. But I am going to here soon repeat some of the first podcasts that we ever did, more of the education podcast. So I hope those will bring even more value, to the listeners, to people maybe hearing them the second time, because it won't be scripted. It won't be the same as the first one. It'll be the same education. But a lot of times I use different analogies, or I've just picked up something new, over the course of the last 2 years. So thank you guys for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.